the doors yet. Apologies. You've got the best seats to choose from. Broadcasting, yes. Yeah.
Executive chair. Okay, probably not. I'm probably going to shuffle our side to the front. Everybody's gone to get breakfast. Well, Debbie said she was coming. I'll text her.
I think it's 9:15. Is it scheduled for 9:15?
The poster says 9.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it's on the door. It's on the door if you want to check.
Then pressure's on.
And I checked the one in the ladies' toilet, that said 9 as well, so I'm sure it's in 9 on the internet page.
I think it's at 9:09 start. So, yeah, so.
Shut my mouth. But time for a breakfast sandwich. Right, you want to say something else then? There was a book.
Yeah, they can do
So it's not the first scene.
Morning. Morning.
We're not late, we were worried that we were late. Oh, I think he's very, yeah, and he's not that. Exactly, you know, because I said, yeah. You know, all these
sorry, that basically never take any advice from me about travelling. I was right that there was Canada in the name, and that when you got off, the tube station was very near. It was just the...
I know, but I managed to go quite strong. It was like bloody when I was away, so I was kind of weakening it through the shop. And then thinking to myself, I just feel like I have to go back to some really good shops.
No, I know. Be out of here at 10. I'm going to have to do a very quick version if you want any questions. So they've already bought them, so you're a lovely bunch of people.
Two men in that. That's good.
I'd say yell into the mic.
Okay. Right, good morning everybody, and welcome to this session on successful strategies for women at work. We're delighted to have Sue Unneman and Catherine Jacob here to talk to us today and share some of their experiences about succeeding and most crucially changing cultures within traditionally male-dominated workplaces. Like I said, I'd like to thank you all for showing up. We've got people watching this in Trinity Mirror newsrooms in Belfast, in Scotland, in Cambridge, Cardiff, Liverpool, Bristol. In fact, I think pretty much every newsroom across Trinity Mirror. And in all my time in this business, I think this is possibly the first truly one Trinity Mirror event that I've been part of. And so to everyone watching and being here, when I say thank you for showing up, I mean not just physically showing up. I mean showing up and making the statement that equal opportunities and equal possibilities for women matter to you in the workplace, and particularly in this workplace. I know some of you may have faced some negativity about the mere prospect of coming here today, and I think there are some people who perhaps think that there's some dastardly plot afoot for women to sort of storm the 22nd floor of like the Bastille.
Yeah, let's go!
Isn't there?
That, for anyone who...
That's the only reason I came.
It's really not the plot.
Maybe not.
All we want is for every woman in this business to have every opportunity to reach her full potential. And if that is, revolutionary, taken to the gallows. This country still has a very poor record on women in leadership roles. We're behind Russia, China, Lithuania, Estonia, Outer Mongolia, you name it. We're kind of not great at the moment. Now, Trinity Mirror, I'm very proud to say, is now taking this issue here very, very seriously, and there's a real commitment to change and to making sure that we have gender equality across the board. But I don't think this can be just a top-down initiative. For it to be successful, we need ideas and a mood for change to sweep upwards and across and from every which way across the building. So if you're not happy about gender inequality in a kind of a wide, sort of big political kind of way, I would suggest that maybe it's time that you get busy about gender inequality in your very personal life, because that's how change happens. And that's also where Catherine and Sue come in, because they are going to help us on a practical, personal level to think about where we're at and what we can do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I didn't say who you are, sorry.
Oh.
So Sue is like super important as chief
Transformation
officer
officer. Yeah.
at
MediaCorp.
MediaCorp, which is like one of the biggest
It
advertising
is.
agencies.
It is
in
the
country.
biggest.
It's really, and you've got Tesco's, which is
We
obviously
do.
very
Yes.
important
Yes.
to us here.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, she's got everything. I mean, let's not even
And then
start doing a client list because we won't get out till
CEO
12.
of Pearl and Dean, which is
Yeah.
obviously another huge advertising organisation. And we've got a hashtag, so if you want to tweet on it, it's hashtag TM Women's Strategies. So anything you feel you'd like to say, just say it. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And hello, Trinity Mirror. This is our ad. We wrote this book because things aren't right out there. Something's not right out there.
Both of us have been working in media, on the media agency side and on the media sales side, for over 30 years. When I started out, my first woman was a boss, and hey, there was a woman Prime Minister then. Whoa, that's how long ago it was. It was obvious to me. And kind of everyone said, oh, the women are coming through, Sue, the women are coming through. It was obvious there was going to be, every other boss was going to be a woman, 5, 10, maybe 15 years at most. Fast forward to now, and you turn round, and that's just not the case. We set out to work out why. We interviewed over 100 people, both inside the UK, outside the UK, men and women. All the stories we're going to tell you today are true, as told to us, but with names changed. Professions changed in some cases, and in a couple of cases, people said to us, can you change the continent on which you've set this, because they were worried about the story getting out. We've also got quant research from the UK, US and Russia, which we'll touch on briefly as well. These numbers are some of the reason why we wrote the book. So in 2015, October 2015, Lord Davis published the latest version of his report on the FTSE 100. He said, good news everyone, he said, we've smashed our target of having over 25% as a proportion of the FTSE 100 boards having women on them. Right, first of all, and I can see by looking at you and knowing where you work, just how brilliant and intelligent you are, one of the numbers on this chart is a percentage of the population of women in the UK. Right, it ain't 25%, so I don't know what the target is doing that, it's 51%. So it's not even 50, it's 51%. We are not a minority, we are a majority. But secondly, when you dug into the report, which I did, the majority of the women that made up that 26% on FTSE 100 boards are NEDs, non-executive directors, who do great jobs. They do great jobs, I'm sure. They come along maybe 4, 5, 6 times a year. It's a good gig, it's a good paying gig. But you give advice on the board. They do not work for those boards. They do not work for those companies full time. Executive directors as a proportion, it's 9.6%, much less to celebrate. And it hasn't changed much since 2015. In fact, there are more men named John running FTSE 100 companies than there are women running FTSE 100 companies. It is not just in the UK that that's the case. You're hard pushed, as you said, anywhere in the world to find places where the proportion of women on listed boards reaches more than a fifth. Does that matter? I mean, it matters to me, but does it matter generally? Catherine?
Well, the estimated cost to the global economy of women not playing an active part in the workplace is 28 trillion. Now, that's a big sum of money. Even I would be hard-pressed to spend that in the lovely shops of Canary Wharf. Mind you, give me till 2:30, so give me a shopping list. And it's a lot of money, but that's also aside from the social benefits of women playing an active part, of the contribution that would make to our mental welfare. You know, there's huge numbers of statistics about mental health issues where women who have fulfilling jobs, you know, have better life outcomes. And so it's not just the money, it's about us as people, and it's about the examples that we set to our children and the society that we're creating, which is an equal society. Now, Sue, as you know, is very analytical. That's why she's a strategy officer. I work in the world of film. And so I don't know much about numbers, but what I do know about this chart is it is utter cack, because we've done 80 of these talks, and trust me, women do not give up their time to turn up in big numbers, with over 60% of them going, actually, the only reason I've come to your talk, Sue and Catherine, is because there isn't much on telly tonight, and frankly, I can't be asked to go to Zumba. So this 41% of 200 successful women don't want to join the C-suite. It's rubbish. And that's the kind of myth that kind of perpetuates this idea, which is, oh, women, they like the idea of success, but they don't want it really. No, they don't. It's just rubbish. And so we've got to call that out. The reason why we called our book The Glass Wall is because ostensibly, due to legislation, there is no glass ceiling, because that's how come there's so many women running FTSE. Oh, hang on, no, there aren't that many women running FTSE companies. But what there is in lots of women's everyday life are glass walls. You know, when you're standing on the other side of a wall, and I say to you, do you want a cup of tea? And you go, no, I'm here till leaving at 3? You know, you don't understand what each other's saying. And men and women can see each other, but we operate in different spheres. And the glass wall could be something that's put up in your organisation. It might be an email trail that you've left off. It might be a meeting that you don't get invited to anymore. It's that subtle kind of thing about, yeah, don't apply for promotion, dear. You're a bit too young. You know, that whole kind of thing. Those glass walls. And so that divide stops us getting on and thriving.
We're going to give 4 case studies from the book to say all the stories are true, all the names are changed. It's important to say 2 things. First of all, we are not saying, because there's some lovely men here, we're not saying men bad, nasty men, stopping women getting wrong. Women lovely, if only they were allowed. We're not saying that. Sometimes the glass wall is something we pull up over ourselves because the banter in the room takes a tone that we don't like. So we kind of withdraw from it. And all our boss sees is that we've withdrawn. He doesn't understand why. He thinks, you know, we might well be smiling faintly at the joke. He thinks we think it's funny. Got to call it out. It's also true that what we're talking about here is that very often a toxic system, a toxic alpha male masculine system that's no good for business and no good for all kinds of talented people, but many of whom seem to be women. Because although we've tried to avoid gender stereotypes in this book, it is clear that women don't come into the workplace with an innate understanding of the rules of the game that operates to get to the top levels that men seem to naturally have. So I'm going to give you an example of that to make it specific. So this is Peter. Peter's 3 years old. And Peter's story was told to me, I'm going to call his mother Jane. And Jane was telling me that Peter had just gone on his first ever Easter egg hunt that he'd been old enough to join him at 3. He was with his twin sister, his older sister, and there were 2 other families. There were about 10 kids altogether. All of the other kids happened to be girls, ranging in age from kind of 10 to 12 to Peter and his twin sister at 3. And so here's some gender stereotypes. The mums lay out the picnic. They've been going on this picnic for a few years. Lay out the picnic, Prosecco, Scotch eggs. The dads go and hide the little eggs, little foil-wrapped Easter eggs, and those little gold-lint bunnies in the woods, and then the kids all go and find the eggs, bring them into the picnic area, share them out. This is how it had gone on, lovely day, 3 or 4 years, till Peter was old enough to join in properly. And this year, Peter came running back to the picnic site where the parents were far sooner than any of the other kids. And Jane said she could see all the mothers going, oh, is everything all right? And Peter jumps into the middle of the circle and he holds up a gold limp bunny and he goes, I've won, Mummy and Daddy, I've won, I've found the gold bunny. There's a bit of silence. And Jane said, I knew what the other mothers, my friends, were thinking. She said, they were thinking, well, hang on a second, no one's ever won the Easter egg hunt before. What's going on? And secondly, actually, there's more than one gold limp bunny, so technically speaking, you're not a winner. But, you know, no one wants to disappoint this little face. So instead, there's a silence, awkward silence. And Peter's dad speaks up instead. And Peter's dad says to Peter, yes, Peter, you've won. You've beaten all the girls. Well done, Peter, you've won. Jane said 2 things. First of all, how soon those gender stereotypes start. She said, I don't think that Peter's dad would have said to Peter's twin sister, if she'd come and done the same thing, oh yes, you've beaten everyone else, she probably would have been told, well, that's not very nice. We're all sharing. Don't know. But secondly, she said, I realised talking to you, Sue, that this showing off and this encouragement of showing off is so innate. And she said, when I'm at work, and she works in a busy NHS hospital as a senior consultant, she said, you know, we think, right, in media, that we're dealing with situations under stress, right? Actually, it's just money, right? She's actually dealing in life and death situations. It's very stressed, very busy. When her boss passes her in the corridor and he says to her, Jane, how are things going? She doesn't want to trouble him, so she goes, everything's under control. She thinks that's her job. Everything's under control. Everything's fine. Everything's good, thank you. She said, I realise that when my boss passes my man colleague and asks him the same question, he says, it's all fine now. There was a huge, huge crisis, but I solved it, don't worry about it. And in the space of those same few seconds, who is lining themselves up for the next pay rise, for the next promotion? You have to show off more. That doesn't mean be like a man. You can do it in any way you like. But the game is, the people who are putting themselves up and claiming all the credit, they are the ones that come to mind in terms of promotion. So if you're a woman on the way up, you need to amplify the good stuff you've done, and there are a number of ways of doing it. What we also do in the book is we give advice for managers as well. And quite clearly, if there are quieter people in your team, maybe women, maybe just quieter men, you need to find structured opportunities for them to talk about what they've done that's good. Oh, That was my bad. Wrong button.
Wrong button. This is a story about a young woman who gets promoted to her first general management position. 2 men at the same level as her, they report to a grumpy middle-aged man, older man. And she's really excited at first time management job, really lovely, team's really great, really excited about the job, etc., etc. Once a week they go and do their reports, all 3 of them, in front of the director, talk about the KPIs, how they're doing against their budget, team development, etc. Then after a few weeks she notices that her 2 male colleagues going, yeah, we talked about that and we decided, duh. And she thinks, I remember being on that conversation and I'm not really sure I'd have agreed with that. And it becomes more and more prevalent in the meetings. And she suddenly realises that the man who's, her boss, is looking at her thinking, well, why aren't you chipping into this and what's going on? And she's kind of being just ever so subtly pushed aside. And she's trying to work out how this has happened because they work in a hideous open plan office where you can have no secrets and all of the meeting rooms are clear glass. So where are they having these meetings? And then one day she's sitting at her desk and she sees them get up and go to the one place that she can't go to, the gents' toilet. And she's so angry. She said to me afterwards, she said, I was so angry. She said, I just got that really kind of irrational rage thing. And I thought, right, I'm going to call this out. She said, so I saw them go in and then I stormed over to the gents' toilet and I pushed the door open and I shouted, okay, boys, I'm in on this meeting. What are we talking about? What are we deciding? And there's a bit of a kind of, I don't know what we're talking about. Yeah. She said, no. Every time I see you going to the loo together, when I'm here, I'm going to follow you. And she said it was deeply, deeply embarrassing because their loos were kind of either side of the kind of central. So there's loads of people going, oh, I wonder what's on at the canteen. Oh, there's a woman shouting into the toilet. How very strange. But she said, I was so angry. She was so angry, she said, that they deliberately, she wasn't even an occasional pattern of behaviour, it was clearly a deliberate pattern of behaviour. And she said, and after I'd done that, it never happened again. And she said, the thing that I realised was that emotion is a really, really big power. Now, one of the things that everyone always says to you is that don't let your emotions come into it. Actually, when you came for your jobs here, no one said to you, yeah, I'd really like the version of you, but could you take out all of your emotions like empathy or anger or sadness? I'd just like to be, we may as well all be AI if we don't have emotion. And the most important thing is don't cry. Try not to cry. Because crying, we do 3 responses as a woman. We either do that gulpy thing, which no one can understand, or we do that high-pitched talk thing. Only dogs can hear you at that frequency, okay? Don't cry. If you think you're going to cry, try and whistle. So what you do is you do this. Don't actually whistle because it's weird. Do this. Because there's something physiological in your face that stops you crying. Don't actually start doing the greatest hits of Take That or something, and it will stop you crying. And the other thing to realise is your emotions are a really, really good thing. So don't shut them down and go, no, I'll be a good girl. Let your emotions run free. Obviously, don't stab a colleague if you're feeling premenstrual. Sorry, boys at the back of the room. But don't be afraid of your emotions. Great actors always say, what I do is I take that feeling and I turn it into something that powers me forward. I don't suppress it.
Who knows, like a show of hands if anyone knows who this fine bunch of young men are, please. Yes?
World Cup winning team, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's the Dutch World Cup winning team. Thank you very much. I didn't know who they were either, I'd just like to say. That, I do now because of a story that was told to me by a woman I'm going to call Sarah. And Sarah had a new boss. Sarah's new boss was called Jim. And although he was a new boss, he wasn't new to her because they'd worked side by side, and then he got promoted over her. And she was actually thrilled by this because she had never worked with someone as a boss who knew her so well. And she was thinking, this is going to be great because Jim's going to listen to all my ideas and it's going to help me get promoted. It's going to be brilliant. We've got a great relationship. So this is what happened the first time Sarah went in to give a new idea to Jim. So she worked in an agency where the media department, the planning department, and the buying department weren't getting on. Now, you won't have any knowledge of this kind of gulf within your organisation. It does happen in publishing. Sometimes the journalists think it's all about them, and the ad sales people, for some reason, think it's about them. It can happen in academic institutions, the academics versus the governance people or the students. Anyway, planners weren't getting on with the buyers. So Sarah goes into Jim and she goes, you know, this problem I've got an idea to fix it. Let me run a role reversal course. We'll have the planners be the buyers for the day, the buyers be the planners for the day. They'll understand each other's problems. It'll sort it out. And Jim says, remember, it's the first time she's gone in with this idea. Jim goes, thinks about it for a second. He goes, that's a terrible idea. Shall I tell you why? Shall I tell you why it's a terrible idea? And like you, Sarah's sort of thinking, maybe not. He goes, I'll tell you why it's such a terrible idea. Because I want them to focus. I don't want the planners to be thinking about what the buyers are doing and the buyers to think about what the planners are doing. I want them to focus. They're just focused and do their job. Just go back and tell them to do their jobs properly. So anyway, so Sarah sort of comes out of the office, obviously not feeling great. She said to me there were 3 things that she thought she could have done. Actually, she didn't do any of them, but 3 things in retrospect. One of them was go back to her desk, sit down, start apologising. You know, we like to apologise, don't we? Apologising out loud. Sorry, stupid idea. Sorry, how could I think that? Sorry. Not great for her, would it? Not great for her self-esteem. Not great for the business, actually, because she's much less likely to ever mention an idea ever again in her entire career. She didn't do that. She could have got on the phone to a headhunter. She could have said, get me out of here. Can't work with Jim. Thought I could. Can't work with him. That probably would have been all right for Sarah. Not so great for Jim because she's a talent. She could have done the thing which, as Catherine knows, I would be most likely to do in that situation, which is go home, then stay up all night scouring the internet for as academic as possible case studies that fundamentally proved what a good idea it was, turn it into a 25-slide deck and attempt to take Jim through it the next day. Wouldn't have gone well. She didn't do any of those things. She went home, she had a bit of a moan to her other half. And this was interesting. Her other half didn't pour a glass of wine and comfort her. He didn't say, Jim's a bully, get yourself out of there. He focused on the idea and he said, oh, it's an interesting idea. He goes, it's a bit like Dutch total football from the 1970s. Did you say that to him? She goes, Dutch what? From the what? Right, so they were a World Cup winning team, right? And football fans know about this irrespective of age, because you certainly weren't a fan in the 1970s, because you're too young and lovely.
Born in the 90s.
But it's a famous thing. They won a lot of trophies, and what they did, their shtick was that when they trained in each other's positions. So the goalie played striker played defence played midfield, right? And it made them better and it made them understand.
Taught her all of this. She knows nothing.
Made them understand how to interact with each other. She goes back in the next day, and Jim, of course, is quite sheepish. He actually likes Sarah, but that makes him more grumpy. So he goes, you haven't come back about that idea, have you? And she goes, it just occurred to me, it's a bit like Dutch total football from the 1970s. And Jim says, that's a fabulous idea. How soon can you organise it? It'll give us competitive advantage. So, first of all, I give you the football analogy. I can assure you I haven't got where I am today at MediaCom without a bit of resource to sporting analogies. You don't need to know about sports yourself. You can just ask someone. It's not just a men-women thing. My chair, Karen, is a massive West Indies cricket fan about which I know nothing. So I know something about batting order might be good when I go and talk to her. If you've got a complicated topic, concept, put it into an analogy, not just of sport, but of the thing about the person is passionate about. Catherine's case, that's obviously movies, because she runs the best movie sales company in the world. And this is a movie that I'm very fond of, which Catherine thinks is dreadful.
Yeah, I think Maggie Smith's probably erased this from her IMDb. But anyway, this is a story about 2 women who work together. And they started working together when they were in their kind of mid-20s. They always had each other's back. You know that thing where you do too much shopping and then you can't take it home because it's really embarrassing because you said you weren't going to buy any more shoes, keeping stuff under your desk and then gradually feeding it, you know. Jacket.
Not that
we'd ever do that. I know, I've just promised to spend 28 trillion with Zoe in shops. You know, and that whole thing where a bit late back from lunch and someone puts a jacket on the back of your chair and says, no, I think she's in a meeting. All that kind of thing. Really, really good friends. And they got to a point where one of the women decided she was going to take a bit of a risky move, go to a completely different field, kind of vaguely related, but quite a risky move. So she leaves, and she has stellar success over the next 3 or so years, gets promoted twice, all really lovely. The woman who'd stayed at the original company, I can't tell you their names because I'm so worried I'm going to out people. I can't remember what we've called them, so I'm worried I'm going to out them. So she stays behind, and during that period of time she gets married, and then she decides to have a child. She has a child. During the time that she's on maternity leave, she gets promoted, and she said it was just like a really weird feeling. She said, because when I went back to work, she said I'd been promoted and I'd go to meetings and everyone would just, people would talk about stuff and they'd all look at me as if I immediately knew the answer. And she said, and the nearest thing that I could find was that, how many people here did a language up until they were 16? How many people still speak that language on a regular basis? Precisely. So it's that thing where you go, of course I know French, I did GCSE. I'm going to go there when I'm 28 and I'll be absolutely fluent. Literally, I'll be serenaded on the boulevards of Paris. And then you realise the only thing you can remember is, could you tell me the way to the library? And I have lost my pencil case. And you're sitting there with a menu and people are going, you speak French, don't you? You go, no idea. You end up ordering something truly disgusting and everyone hates you. Anyway, she said it was like that. I vaguely remembered the language that I was meant to talk, but none of it made any sense to me whatsoever. And so she got more and more panicky. And she said, and I just didn't know what to do. And I couldn't go to my bosses and go, I'm sorry, I think I might be a bit cack. I think I might have given birth to my brain. She said, so what I did was I phoned my friend. So they met for wine. There's quite a lot of wine themes in here. I'm sorry, so early on a Friday. They met for wine and she said to her friend, look, this is how I'm feeling. Her friend hadn't had a child, and she said, it's really easy, it's what you need to do. You need to write a positioning paper for the business for the next 3 years, and then the other thing you need to do is to get on panels, and then the other thing you need to do is network. And she said, and I looked at her as if she'd just said to me, I think what you should do is just maybe enter the London Marathon with barely 10 minutes training. She said, I can't do that. And she said, and I just thought to myself, that's just really, really weird. Top tips about networking: 2 glasses of wine, okay? 2 glasses of wine. You walk in, you don't know anybody. 3 people, you can always go up and go, I seem to have been given another glass of wine, can I give you a glass of wine? No one's going to punch you in the face and go, now go away. Second thing, if you get stuck with a really dreadful person, Sue knows I spent 22 minutes with a man about chiller logistics, you can then go, I'm really sorry, that attractive man over there in the blue jumper, I promised I'd take him a glass of wine. And then you just go over and go, please save me from the tedious man in chiller logistics. Or the other thing is, if it's really, really dreadful, just drink both glasses of wine and go home. So that is your top tip. The thing about this story is that those women had lots and lots in common, but their life experience is different. So what you need to do is you need to find yourself a mentor, which is someone you can go and talk to about what's happening in your life. And you need to find yourself a sponsor. And the sponsor is the person higher up in the business who talks about you and gives you a bit of kind of PR. Just see them as your own PR person. And it might strike you now that, no, I'm too junior for that. You are never too early to find someone who is going to go, I think it's time we promoted, what's your name?
Julia.
Julia. She's brilliant. Maybe not now, but we should really, really be investing in it. And that's what you need to do. Your friends are lovely, but your friends are there basically to drink wine and eat tapas with and then bitch about people or moan about your other halves, right? They are not there to give you life advice.
Right, I'm going to move on because I want to get to time for some questions, hopefully. As well as the case studies, the book is full of tips and tactics. Have you seen the Amy Cuddy TED Talk on confidence? Some of you nodding.
Right, we're going to stand up anyway.
If you haven't, watch it. But I think let's do a bit of power posing for a Friday morning. So what she says is if you take the confident power pose, even if you're feeling scared, it will give you confidence. So everybody up standing, please. Hands on hips. Feet width apart.
Shoulders back.
Shoulders back. Deep breath. And then we're just all going to say, I am brilliant.
I am brilliant.
I rock.
I rock.
Thank you very much.
Wonder Woman is available on a film that's coming out tonight, Justice League, released by Warner Brothers.
The other thing in the book is quite a lot of quant research from our friends at Lightspeed. This is just one of the things we asked. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to ask you a question in a moment. Well, 1 is highly feminine, so think Marilyn Monroe in terms of style, communication style at work, and 10 is more macho, think John Wayne. Where would you put yourself, we ask people. So, if you would put yourself on the more feminine side, 1 to 5, can you put your hand up, please? Just it's no wrong answers, just interesting. And then 6 to 10? Okay, you're very uncharacteristic of the population here. That's interesting. As far as the populations go, only about 35% of women would put themselves 6 or more. As far as men are concerned, only 5% of men would put themselves 5 and under. In Russia, there's a big round 0 that would put themselves on the feminine side. This is interesting because of how you see yourself and how other people see you. So, let me give you an example. When I was coming up with the idea for this research, I talked about it to one of my bosses, who's a 6'4" alpha man, right? And I said to him, doing this survey, I said, where would you put yourself, Steve, on a scale of 1 to 10? And he said, oh, I don't know. He said, probably 7 or 8. Now, okay, now that I know that the scale for men is actually only 6 to 10, he's actually saying he's in touch with the feminine side almost, right? So, okay. He said, where would you put yourself? So I said, oh, I don't know, I think probably I'd see myself as 6 or 7. And he said, oh, come on, Sue. This is a matter, he loves me, this man, right? He thinks I'm brilliant.
We all love you.
He said, no, really not. He said, come on, Sue, 6 or 7? And I said, yeah, 6 or 7. He said, but look at what you're wearing. Oh, I didn't know it was that simple. I didn't know that if I wear a lovely red dress, my lovely men colleagues will think that I'm being feminine. And if I cross-dress, which you are, right? Because 100 years ago, you would have got thrown out, right?
200 years ago, you'd have been burnt at the stake, probably. So we're all moving on. It's only taking 100 years at a time.
Then I might be being seen differently. So it's just interesting. So it says if I want to go and, again, petition someone for something, I might think about how they dress now, if they're a man, and whether if I want something, should I go wearing a pink dress or should I go wearing a black trouser suit? Not right or wrong, there's no rights or wrongs, it's just interesting to think about it.
I love the sound of breaking legs, especially when I'm lonely.
We need to get this changed now. I mean, it is long past time. We need to break those glass walls. Organisations and managers need to break those glass walls. This is our book. I think we've got about 5 minutes for questions. Thank you so much for having
Any questions? Any questions?
We've stunned them. It's too much information.
Oh.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So at MediaCom there's obviously loads of senior women. What do you think's really driven that change there to be such a great example for what again is quite a male-dominated industry?
Meritocracy and competitiveness. So at the point of writing this book, it's changed a bit now because Josh is our CEO, but when we wrote the book, Karen was CEO, Jane was chair, Claude managing director, me chief strategy officer, fifth top client-facing person was Josh as COO, who's now CEO. 4 out of the 5 women, 3 out of those 4 women working part-time. We'd never done anything for women at MediaCom London, ever. Right, we have an inclusion network now that's for all sorts of people. We'd never done anything. I think that, and that's why I set out to write the book, because I kind of turned around, looked at the rest of the industry, went, this is rather strange. And I think the reason is because the people at the top of MediaCom have been so competitive that if they genuinely thought promoting a gerbil onto the board would give us a competitive edge, there would be a gerbil on the board, right? I think what's more interesting is why it's not like that everywhere else. It's been to our great advantage, quite frankly. It can be like that everywhere else. You know, I was involved in the panel, I don't know if anybody was at the Marketing Society conference. I was involved in the panel for convening who was going to appear at the conference, and the reason was that this time last year I tweeted, yeah, nice conference. Were there 2 women on stage out of 15? And the woman that runs it, Gemma, said, well, come on, help me on the panel then. And they had a great day, day before yesterday. They rocked it, actually. They had more women, I think, than men. Turns out they're out there. Turns out, oh, what a shock. You know, if you actually go looking, there are talented, brilliant, brave, capable women. It's just that you've got to go a little bit further than the people that you have lunch with in terms of who you're going to promote and the people that look like you.
First, fabulous shoes. I love
Oh, thank you.
She's got another pair of red boots that are really rocking.
Yeah. Next time when I come back.
She can't wear them though because they hurt her feet.
I have red ones as well. I was going to ask, so obviously you're both very successful in your careers. Who was kind of your female role models when you were starting to, grow in your career? Who would you say that you really look up to and why?
I didn't have any professional female role models. I is the answer.
I've only worked for a woman once and it was the most hideous experience of my life. And but actually, Sue and I have talked about this, and I think, that it was just a function of the organisation we're in. I don't think she was a horrible person. I just think it was a function of the organisation that we're in. I think so. I've only worked for a woman once. And so I think my big thing is my friend here, because we've known each other since, we can't even remember meeting. That's how long we've known each other. And we know we didn't meet as children because we lived in different parts of the country. So that's the only thing. But Sue has always been there for me, and we're very, very different. She's very introverted. As you can tell, I'm incredibly extroverted. And we're kind of like yin and yang, and she's always been there for me, and she's that person that I know I can phone her up and say, this is what I'm thinking of doing, what do you think? And she'll go, yes, do that, but do that as well. And I think that you need to have 3 people that you've got on speed dial, or that you can phone up and you go, I'm in prison in Colombia, will you come? And I know she'll come.
I would.
She would, but she hates flying. So it's going to be slightly traumatic. As long as I was
take a long time.
As long as I was in prison somewhere on a train journey, I'd be fine. But no, and I've got 3 people.
I'd
who,
fly if you were in prison in Colombia.
Not like that, but I've got 3 people, and it is that thing which is, and also I want to be a role model for other people. I don't need another role model.
And I don't know about that. I'd say pick and choose bits of people, right? Because there's loads of fabulous people out there. I think focusing on one, but there weren't that many senior women around, actually.
No.
And then we've got some questions from sort of elsewhere in the
Brilliant.
business.
I feel like I'm taking part in Children in Need. I feel like, yes, and we're just going to Belfast for an update.
Okay, this one's from Jackie, but I think, is that Jackie in Scotland? Yeah.
Scotland.
What's the best advice when dealing with a challenging male colleague?
Okay, the answer that I would give is be as flattering as possible to his ego. Because if you challenge a challenging male colleague, he will just challenge back and challenge harder. So we don't know the exact situation here. But what I would do is take him aside and go, I really, really value your expertise and your advice, and I know how much you want to promote women and get stronger women through here. So next time, maybe you could help me in this situation. So that would be
and
my
one from
advice.
Joanne McGreevy in Belfast. Your top 2 tips for breaking the glass wall?
Resilience. So, that whole thing about just because you have, one bad incident doesn't mean you have to go home and wear tracksuit bottoms the rest of your life and watch Jeremy Kyle. Well, no, it's true though, because we all go, oh God, that's it.
You go, it's me.
You have one bad day with your boss and you go, that's it, he hates me. Men never think that, sorry, but they don't. They just go, tosser, he was in a bad mood. Seriously, they do. So resilience is absolutely key. And the other thing as well is, we've done 80 of these talks now, and we keep having women going, it's like this and it's like this and it's like this. You just go, it's hideous. I mean, it can't happen here because Zoe wouldn't work here if it was like that. But if it's hideous, get out, because it's not you, it's them. And that's the other thing, is know where your boundaries are, because you are all fabulous women. You wouldn't have got your jobs in the first place. There's going to be somewhere else that's going to give you a job. It's not like we're in tied service. It's not like 12 years a slave and you have to stay here until you get carted out in a coffin. Go somewhere that recognises your talent.
And do you know what I'd also say, which is a third one? Speak up for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, speak up for each other.
And then I've just got one more from Kerry from Trinity Mirror South East. How do you deal with mansplaining?
Oh, well. You just have to do the thing where you put your head on one side and go, I'm really sorry, but do you think I don't understand what you're saying? And then when they go, well, you just go, well, actually, I do.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. Were you talking to a small dog who was in the back of the room? That, you know, you think you need to. So kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
Do you know? It's like that whole thing where you put your head on one side and go, "Do you know you really sound like a President Trump tweet?" How funny! Was that intentional? It's really amusing. Anyway, what's your real view? And that's the thing, is kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
It's like that whole
Humour.
thing about when people do stuff and you go, did you mean to be so rude? It's really uncharacteristic. You okay, hun? That's always quite good as well. With a little pat on their arm.
Yeah.
You okay, hun?
More questions?
So you said about is it 9% of women that actually hold FTSE 100?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
9.6.
know the facts of women of colour in those positions?
I don't, but it's tiny. It's in
Yeah.
the report, and you can Google the report, but it's absolutely tiny. And yeah, you know what? It's the key here is meritocracy, right? We were on a radio phone-in, London Radio London phone-in, and somebody said to me, this woman phoned in, and she said, you know, you're saying it's difficult for women glass wars. Let me tell you, for women of colour, it's a concrete wall. She said, do you know there's only one woman running a media agency? And I said, yes, she's my boss. It's Karen Hackett. So that was a bit.
Yeah.
But the point was that we didn't make Karen CEO because she was in chair because she was a black woman. We made her CEO and chair because she's brilliant. What idiots are the rest of the industry if she could have worked somewhere else and not got that job? I mean, it's just got to break those glass walls down. Don't be put off.
So, Catherine, thanks. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given from a business point of view and career decision you've ever made?
Well, mine's easy, actually. Best career decision, which was against the odds, actually, was to go and work at the media business in 1990. I was very young when I started.
She was 10. She's always been a child genius.
But at the time, it was full service creative agencies were the thing, and no one went to a media independent, and I kind of jumped in there because of Steve Allen. And it was by far the best thing to do, and now Mediacom is the biggest media agency in the land.
1.5 billion?
6, I think.
Not that she's counting.
But he actually gave me the best bit of advice that I've ever had, which is I was asking him a question about something, should and he just said, just be yourself. He said that's all anyone wants. So just be yourselves.
I think we've got time for 2 more.
How would you advise on developing a mentor or a sponsor? So I've just recently read Lean In, and Cheryl describes it as something that will happen organically and it's not official, but
Yeah.
is there...
No.
I love Sheryl Sandberg, but lean in, Jesus. We're working bloody hard enough anyway, for the love of God. I haven't got time to lean in.
It's a little bit tiring.
It's very tiring. I'm bored of leaning in. I'd like someone else to lean in. In fact, I'd quite like to lean back and have a bit of a kip sometimes. So, Nabs will find you a mentor. So go and
IPA.
talk to the lovely Diana Tickell and her team,
What's
Nikki
NABS?
Harris, or
What's NABS?
National Advertising Benevolence Society.
Okay.
Decide what you want, and also don't decide the 3 things you want for them. I do mentoring, and I literally have people who turn up with a bloody laundry list of stuff, and you've given them an hour, and after an hour and 15 minutes, my EA Thomas is going, you have to go now, and we've got about 3 down.
But be specific.
Be
as well,
specific
really
about
good.
what you want. Go, I want to meet you for coffee 3 times a year, and I want to be able to email you, and that's it.
And then one at the back.
What would be your advice for like a working mum trying to get to the top of her career and potentially part-time? Is it possible? Because I find it quite harder to do.
I give you Sue Uniman.
And Catherine,
And I give you me.
and Catherine, Jacob, and as I say, Karen and Jane. Yes, it is possible. You need firm boundaries, right? And you need to stick to those boundaries and not feel guilty. So part of the problem is often, if you say what you want from the business, quite often the business will say, yeah, no, that's not unreasonable. But we don't do that. We go, oh, should be doing this, should be doing that. Oh, no, they've asked me to come in on Friday. I'm coming on Friday. What should I do? What should I do? Be firm. Stick to your boundaries. Don't feel guilty. And if you need to ask for flexibility, ask for that flexibility, but then give flexibility back. Right? I think that's the key thing, is that often businesses feel like it's just one way and they get a bit grumpy about it. So when they give you flexibility, give them some flexibility back, and good luck.
I'm really sorry, I'm
We could go on, couldn't we? Tweet us, email us.
Email us.
Email. Thank you so much, everyone, for turning up, and for Sue and Kathleen. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant,
and
thank you.
to everybody here, there's books here which I think you're happy
We
to
will
sign.
sign if you've got
so-
time. Yeah.
And I think that's a really big thing at this point. So read stuff. Think about stuff, work out what it is that you want personally, work out what it is that you
We'll
think
come
the
back and do
organisation's
just a
doing.
Q&A if you want.
If you want, yeah. And to be honest, we've been told by women, women have been come up to us with the book and gone, this is how I got my promotion, thank you. This is how I got my pay rise. So if you follow the advice in it.
So thank you very much. And if you've got any thoughts or anything or things that you think we should do, or any brilliant ideas or whatever, email me or on the Twitter hashtag, which I can't remember what it was, hashtag TM Women's Strategies, that's the one, TM Women's Strategies. Just do stuff and stuff will happen. All right, lovely. Thank you.